April 2nd, 1892. Dear Martha, today we left at the crack of dawn. It was my first day to drive Jeb in January all by myself. Pap sat with me for a while, just to be sure I'd be all right, but I did fine. He said some folks are having trouble with their wagons with all the extra weight and supplies. After he was sure I could handle the team, he rode off on Gabriel to keep an eye on the wagons and help folks shift their supplies if they needed it. When I drive the wagon by myself, I feel proud that I know how to handle Jeb in January and follow the wagon ahead. I have to watch for ruts in the road or big rocks that might cause our oxen to stumble and fall. This morning, Miss Emily invited Dylan over to play with Lucy, so Mama went to practice the piano. Miss Melman said Mama has real talent and encouraged her to practice whenever she can. I asked Mama if I could go back there and hear her play. She said not yet. I begged her, but she said don't meddle. At first, I was kind of hurt because she wouldn't let me come hear her play, but something exciting happened in the meantime, and I would have been sorry if I hadn't been driving the wagon. Around noon, we met up with another wagon train. I heard folks up ahead hollering, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I saw Pap and the rest of the pushers riding hard, up toward the front of the train, where Captain Walsh usually rides. Travis came flying back this way toward the wagon, shouting the news. "Wagon train! Captain says we'll be stopping." I pulled gently on the reins and called out, "Whoa there, Jeb. Whoa there, January." Another wagon train? We've passed folks in wagons, on horses, and on foot, but never another whole caravan. We stopped for a while so Captain Walsh could talk to their captain. They talked a long time. Then Pap came galloping back on Gabriel. "Tell him, folks, move ahead slowly. Follow the circle." By this time, Mama had come back from the piano wagon, but she was up ahead at Miss Emily's wagon getting Dylan. As the other train passed us, folks waved and we waved back, and there I was, Teddy Bodain, 10-year-old adventure girl, sitting on our high seat and driving a team of oxen to beat the band. We made a big half circle with our wagons, and the other train made a big half circle with their wagons. So when we were finally stopped, there was a huge circle of wagons. Folks got down from their wagons and off their horses to stretch their legs. Captain Walsh rode back to speak to us. "Folks, I know their captain, Marcus Yoner. Good man. He'd like to camp near us for tonight and tomorrow. If you folks are of mind, we'll have a whoop-de-doo tonight and a preaching service tomorrow. I was planning to stop for a day anyway, so our teams can rest. We'll leave Monday morning sharp." Our mamas immediately began to discuss the dishes to make, any ingredients they would need. Mama and Mrs. Carter and Ms. Melman and Ms. Emily were talking up a storm. Miss Carter said, "Grace, it won't be a party if you don't make your macaroni and cheese." Mama said, "Well, Cassie, you'll have to help me. Emily, I hope you bring out a jar of your pickles." A whoop-de-doo. Goodness gracious. And Ethelbert and Evan, we need a party. Love, Teddy. April 3rd, 1892. Dear Martha, if you ever have a chance to go to a whoop-de-doo, don't miss it. It was so much fun. Yesterday, as soon as we found out we were going to have a whoop-de-doo with the other train, folks went around to the other wagons to meet each other and find out where they were headed. This train came from Kentucky, and they're heading to a place just 100 miles from here. Their journey's almost over. They had a drought in Kentucky and the crops failed, so most of them want to try their hand at farming in the Florida wilderness. Pap and the rest of the pushers from both trains called games for the children. And we had sack races, a three-legged race, Minnie and I were together, a wheelbarrow race, drop the handkerchief, and spelling bee, which was won by a Kentucky girl. Her word was consternation. I had just gotten out with the word jostling. Vexation. The Kentucky girl won a silver dollar. The men played horseshoes and the competition was fierce. The onlookers clapped and shouted with every toss. It was finally between Martin Carter and a man from the other train, Martin 1. The women cooked supper while the men fashioned tables out of whatever they could find in the wagons. Sawhorses, lumber, doors, and a big store sign that said Farrier. We piled the pots of food on the tables, and every family brought their own plates and spoons from their wagons. Guess what? We met another family of Bodains. Pep and the other Mr. Bodain talked about their kin and tried to see if we were related by blood. Pep asked about his cousins, Daniel Bodain, who lives down near McCanopy, Florida, but they did not know him. We decided that we must be related somehow, way far back in the Bodain family line. It was fun because the rest of the time we called each other cousin. After supper, folks hung their lanterns all around. The place was lit up as bright as day. The men cleared the tables, and Captain Walsh called for a fiddler. We ended up with 3 fiddlers, 3 mandolin players, 2 guitar players, 2 harmonica players, and 2 banjo players. There were even more musicians, but the women complained that there wouldn't be anybody left to dance with. Everybody danced, children, women, men, and even the old folks. You didn't even need a partner. You just got out in a circle and danced and danced. Pap and Mama danced with their cheeks together and their eyes closed. Miss Melman danced with Captain Walsh. When the night was over, folks took their lanterns down and headed off to their wagons. Today, we gathered again for a preaching service. Captain Walsh had one of the hired drivers drive the piano wagon out toward the middle of the circle. Folks from both trains gathered around the end of it, brought their chairs, keg barrels, boxes, whatever they had to sit on. They opened a canvas so the sound could come out, and Miss Melman played hymns. Mr. Carter led the singing. One of the men from the other train did the preaching. He preached the shortest sermon I ever heard. I said, thank goodness. A little too loud, and Mama pinched me, but I didn't care. I bet she was glad it was short, too. For the rest of the day, folks visited and helped each other. Kids played everywhere. Women spread quilts out for all the babies, and the farrier from the other train looked at our horses and checked to see if they needed shoes. A barber cut folks' hair. Miss Carter gave out her liniments and tinctures. Miss Melman wrote letters for folks, and Pep and some other farmers talked about which crops would grow in Florida and which crops wouldn't. Mama swapped recipes and looked at pattern books. I showed some girls from the other train how to make a cat's cradle. They showed me how to make a button on a string so that it spins. Travis and the boys played marbles and captured the flag. We were all going 12 ways to Sunday. What a day. Love, Teddy. April 4th, 1892. Dear Martha, today we are all tired. We had such a good time with the folks from the other wagon train. None of us got enough sleep last night. I couldn't stop thinking about the dance, the feast, and the Kentucky kids we played with. I wish we could all travel together, but they're heading in a different direction. Pap drove the wagon, and Dylan played with Lucy and Miss Emily's wagon. Mama said, let's do something special. I know just the thing. You'll never guess what it was. She taught me how to make jerky. I've eaten jerky before, but I had no idea how to make it. First, she scraped off every bit of fat from a big chunk of venison Pap brought home. Fat goes rancid quickly, she said. If you make it right, jerky will last for months. When the meat was scraped clean, which didn't take long since deer meat doesn't have much fat, we sliced it into long, thin strips. Then we rubbed salt and pepper all over the strips. I covered the meat on both sides. Don't skimp, Mama said. Salt adds lots of flavor. Now, it might sound strange, but next, we threaded a length of cotton thread in the end of each strip of meat using a needle. We tied the two ends of the thread to make a loop. After every strip of meat had a loop, Mama stretched a cord on the outside of the wagon from the back to the front. We hung all the little loops on it and let the venison strips hang free. When we finished, there they were, all in neat rows on either side of the wagon. Don't we have to hang the strips over a smoky fire, I asked. We're not staying in one place long enough. We're going to make this Florida sunshine work for us, Mama said. The heat from the sun will pull out all the moisture in 2 days' time. We'll have jerky. I said, won't it draw flies? Mama said, not with all the rocking this wagon does. Flies will want to land, but with all the bouncing around, they won't be able to. We didn't know Pap was listening. He called, "So if the wagon jerks it around, should we call it jerkin' jerky?" We laughed. Mama said we should call it jumpin' jerkin' jerky. I remember the spelling bee. I said we should call it jumpin' jostlin' jerkin' jerky. That tickled Pap. He said, "You win." Mama showed me a fold of white cloth. She said, "At night, we'll cover the strips with cheesecloth to keep the bugs off. It will also keep off the morning dew. Tomorrow, we'll salt the strips one more time." Mama's so smart. I hope I turn out like her. So there we were, rolling along, on our way to our new homestead, making the sun work for us to dry out our venison jerky. It was a good day. Love, Teddy. April 5th, 1892. Dear Martha, we had school again today. Leave it to Miss Melman to come up with something fun. She said, "This wagon train feels like one big family, doesn't it?" We all agreed. "I've been thinking," she said. "We're like a traveling town. We don't have banks or libraries or stores or even a doctor, but we've got each other. Many people on this train have useful talents and abilities. I've written some names on slips of paper. I'd like each of you to draw a name." She put the slips of paper in her straw hat, passed it around. I drew Mrs. Carter's name. Miss Melman said, "I'm going to ask you to interview the person whose name you drew. Find out their special gifts. Learn from them. When we meet together another time, we'll teach each other what we've learned." I was so excited. I love stuff like that. Miss Melman said, "Take your sketchbooks with you, record what you can, make drawings. You can use your pictures when we share. I'm going to interview Mrs. Carter tomorrow. Never interviewed anyone before, but I'm always asking questions, so I think it'll be fun. Besides, Mrs. Carter is nice and is always helping folks." Miss Melman read more of Tom Sawyer. He reminds me of Travis Lark, always running around and into foolishment. He is an orphan, but he lives with his Aunt Polly and not in an orphanage, which is good because I've heard you would not want to have to live in an orphanage. Sometimes the people who run the orphanage are mean and cruel. Remember the orphanage in Oliver Twist when Miss Pettigrew read it to us? Anyway, Tom's cousin Sid is younger and he's spoiled and mean. He tattles on Tom and always runs to tell Aunt Polly when Tom sneaks out of their bedroom window and skips school. Then Tom gets in trouble with Aunt Polly, even though she loves him and wants him to turn out good. I'm waiting for Tom to play some sort of trick on Sid so that Sid gets into trouble, not Tom. Tom is smart. I bet he's going to think of something clever to play on Sid. Today, while Miss Melman read aloud, she had a special treat, a peppermint stick for each of us. I love peppermint sticks. We sucked on them and twisted them back and forth in our mouths so that after a while they had a sharp point. I saw Travis stick Jasper in the back of the neck with his point. See? I told you he's a lot like Tom Sawyer. Jasper stuck Travis back, and soon we were all sticking each other with our candy points while Miss Melman kept reading away. We thought she didn't see us, but she said, "That's all for today. Tomorrow's chapter is called Tom and Huck Stick Each Other with Peppermint Candy Points." We looked embarrassed. Miss Melman said, "I know you're not paying attention to the story if you're busy poking each other with candy points." We felt bad. Miss Melman had bought the candy for us as a special treat. We had repaid her by cutting up while she was reading. I have to stop writing now. Mama made a little pot of salty water. She wants me to brush it on each of the jerky strips while they're still hanging up. If she's not looking, I might eat one. Love, Teddy. April 6, 1892. Dear Martha, today the wagons ahead of us slowed and stopped, but we had no idea why. Travis Lark came galloping back, telling us that there was a peddler who wanted to show his wares. Captain Walsh said we could stop for a few minutes in case anyone wanted to make a purchase. The man was dressed in fancy clothes, including a vest and a top hat. His wagon was bright red and yellow and opened up on the side. like a little stage. We wondered, what in the world is this? He said, "Folks, Dr. Xavier Zoran at your service. It is my pleasure to present to you in amazement, a wonder, a staggering demonstration that has confounded commoners and gentry alike." We gathered around. Dr. Zoran continued, "My assistant, the lovely Flavia, will help me." A woman wearing a strange costume came from the side, pushing a large cage to the center of the tiny stage. The cage was covered with a green velvet cloth. She flipped the cloth back at us to see what was inside. A pitiful-looking dog sat looking at us. He was so thin his ribs showed. Dr. Zoran said in a loud voice, "Notice this unhealthy mongrel. Not one of you would want him in this condition." He paused. "Fortunately, I have a regenerative syrup, a life-giving liquid, a restorative recipe, which will dramatically improve this animal's condition right before your very eyes." He held up a glass bottle containing a red liquid. Dr. Zoran's elixir of life. This highly sought-out formula comes from the Rendini people of eastern Rumbonia. Its medicinal powers are astounding. He poured some syrup in a big spoon and stuck it through the bars of the cage. The dog lapped it up hungrily. "See," Dr. Zoran said. "This dog is eager to get well. He is weak, let me tell you. Even the sun hurts his sore eyes." His assistant, Flavia, flipped the green cloth back over the front of the cage so the dog was hidden. Dr. Zoran said, "My miracle cure elixir of life only takes a short while to work on small animals. It takes a few days on humans, but it'll have the same healing effect on any one of you. It's been known to cure rheumatism, arthritis, ringworm, sleepiness, gout, headache, teething babies, and general malaise. It works on colic, dyspepsia, fungus, and the swooning vapors." He snapped his fingers. Flavia whipped the cover back so we could see. The dog was fat and healthy. He held his head high and his eyes were bright. We crowded forward. The dog was a beauty. He barked and wagged his tail. Everyone gasped, including me. Folks started digging into their pockets to buy bottles of the syrup. Dr. Zoran said, "They're going like hotcakes, ladies and gents. Get yours while the getting's good." While he sold his elixir, Flavia pushed the cage off the stage back into the wagon. I took one last look at the beautiful dog, wishing he was mine. A few minutes later, Dr. Zoran and his assistant were gone. On our way back to the wagon, I said, "Pep, have you ever seen something like that?" He said, "I've seen a trickster in a monkey suit before." That made me sad, I said. "Didn't you see how he healed the sick dog? Made him like new." Pep said, "Theodosia, some people will try any trick in the book to cheat you out of your money. Why does Pap have to be such a fuddy-duddy? Seeing is believing. Why can't he believe?" April 7th, 1892. Dear Martha, 2 good things happened today. First of all, Travis challenged me to a slingshot contest. I said, "What are we playing for?" He said if he won, I'd have to give him some of our venison jerky. I said, "How many pieces?" He said, 3. I said, "What if I win?" He said, "There's no way you'll win." I said, "What if I do?" He looked at Jasper Lowe with a "you and I both know I can beat Teddy Bodain" look. He said, "You won't. But if you do, I'll give you all your marbles back." I said, "And your cat's eye shooter?" He said, "And my cat's eye shooter." I trounced him good. Jasper Lowe was our officiator. He said I won fair and square. Travis gave me back all my marbles, including his cat's eye shooter and a marble sack. He said if I hadn't taught you so much about shooting a slingshot, you wouldn't have won. But he was a good sport about it, all in all. Jasper said, "Travis, maybe you need a spoonful of Dr. Zoran's elixir of life." Second good thing that happened was my interview with Mrs. Carter. She's such a nice person. I asked her about her tinctures and liniments. I wanted to know how she had learned to use them to heal folks. She said, "I'm not a doctor or anything like that. My mama just taught me which plants are good for different ailments. That's the way we did in the old days when we couldn't get to a doctor. Mama taught me to rub a rhubarb leaf or a slice of lemon on a hornet sting. That'll take the pain away every time. She taught me that the evening primrose is good for arthritis. Feverfew can cure a headache. ginger aids and poor digestion. As she talked, she showed me each plant or herb. Some were dry, some were growing in pots, and some she'd crushed to a powder. She said garlic's good for fatigue. You can eat it whole, fresh, or roasted over a fire. Mama taught me how to gather golden seal, bayberry, butternut bark, chamomile, and mayapple, things like that. They're all found in nature. I make tonics and tinctures to take in my mouth and liniments to rub on the body. I said, like Dr. Zorn's elixir of life. She gave me a look. You didn't buy a bottle of that, did you? I shook my head. No, Pap thinks it's all hogwash. Miss Carter said, then your Pap has got a good head on his shoulders. Maybelle Terwilliger showed me her bottle, and I gave it a taste. It wasn't anything but cheap corn whiskey and red sugar syrup. That man isn't a doctor. Let me tell you, he just swindled folks out of their money. I said, but what about the dog? Didn't you see how thin he was? After he drank one spoonful of that elixir, he was well. Mrs. Carter said, honey, I don't know exactly how he did it. That hornswoggler pulled a fast one. His assistant was in on it somehow. I said, but I was standing right next to the cage, Miss Carter. I saw it with my own eyes. Miss Carter said, like Mr. P.T. Barnum says, there's a sucker born every minute. That got me wondering, if it was true what Pap and Miss Carter were saying, we'd all been had. Love, Teddy. April 8th, 1892. Dear Martha, our jerky's ready. I should say our delicious jerky is ready. I should say our scrumptious jerky is ready. I wish you could taste some right now. The sun has been shining hot for 2 days straight, and the strips of meat have turned very dark. That means they've dried out properly. I helped Mama take them down and store them between layers of cheesecloth. I could eat every one. I said, may I have 3 pieces for Travis Lark? Mama said, Travis Lark? What on earth for? I told her about the slingshot contest and winning my marbles back and his cat's eye shooter. Mama said, are you sweet on him? I practically screamed, Mama, of course not. He's just my friend. Mama said, well, all right then. You're just being neighborly. We had school again today, Miss Melman said. I hope your interviews are going well. I'm going to give you a few more days to work on them. Don't forget to include some pictures in your sketchbooks. I'm glad she gave us more time. I haven't had much time to do my drawings. Life is so busy on a wagon train. Where does all the time go? We settled in for Miss Melman to read several more chapters of Tom Sawyer. This time, we were quiet and listened to every word. Tom Sawyer is such a good book. Miss Melman was just getting to the part about Tom and Becky Thatcher being sweet on each other. She liked him, but she pushed him off a bridge into the water. I thought about Travis Lark. He's a boy and he's my friend, but he's not my boyfriend. I don't know why Mama had to say that. I only wanted to give him the jerky because he was such a good sport about losing his marbles and his shooter. He would love our jerky. I looked around for Travis, but to my surprise, he wasn't there. I was wondering where in the world he could be when he rode up on Dixie, all huffy and out of breath. He said, sorry I'm late, Miss Melman. A constable rode up a few minutes ago with his deputy and asked Captain Wash if we had seen Dr. Xavier Zorn selling his elixir of life. He said Dr. Zorn swindled his townspeople out of their money. He had sold them bogus medicine. The constable's wife gave the stuff to her pet kitty and the cat got drunk. We burst out laughing. Miss Melman said, oh dear. I had my suspicions about Dr. Zorn. I studied my maps in the globe, and I'm afraid the country of Rambonia simply doesn't exist. I said, it doesn't? Miss Melman said, no, and I've never heard of the Rendini people either. I think Dr. Zorn's a swindler, and I don't think we're the first of the people to fall for his scheme. Haley said, but why would he lie to us? Miss Melman looked thoughtful. It's sad to think about it, but there are dishonest people in this world. Instead of doing an honest day's work, they would rather trick people out of their hard-earned money. In my book, that's just not right. I remembered folks handing their dollars over, dollars that had been earned with hard work. I felt sick with shame. I'd been so wrong about Pap. Love, Teddy. April 9th, 1892. Dear Martha, today our caravan stopped by a swamp. We weren't expecting anything special. But one by one, all the wagons ahead of us stopped. So we did too. Captain Walsh came riding by on his horse, Highlander. We were a little surprised because he usually sends Travis with all the messages. Captain Walsh called out, "I'm inviting all children who are old enough to behave to join me out here. I want to show you a real Florida swamp. You must have on shoes or boots. Some of you adults may want to join us. That is, if you can behave." That tickled Mama. She said, "Go do it." I grabbed my sketchbook and took off flying. Captain Walsh led us to the edge of a low, muddy river. Strange wooden points jutted up out of the water. I sketched them quickly so I could ask about them later. Some of the trees that lined the shore were full and leafy, and moss hung from their branches. Other trees looked like dead skeletons. There were birds in the sky, birds floating on the water, and birds sitting on the branches of the dead trees. Fish jumped right out of the water and splashed back in again. Captain Walsh said, "I've led wagon trains down this way since just after the war between the states. I've learned a thing or two from Indians, naturalists, settlers, and original pioneers known as Florida crackers, who have grown up on the land. I'd like to teach you a few things about the swamps you'll be seeing all along our journey." Right away, he cautioned us. "Always stay back away from the edge of the water, children. See who's taking a nap in the morning sun." I looked, but I couldn't make out what he was talking about. Captain Walsh said, "Right there. See those long, scaly animals?" He waited for us to focus. "Those are reptiles, American alligators." Alligators? I'd heard about them. I'd had nightmares about them. Now I was seeing them with my own eyes. They were absolutely still. They didn't move a muscle or even blink their eyes. I thought they might be dead. Captain Walsh said, "These are the little fellows, and their big brothers are about 5 times as big." I was astonished. The little fellows were about as long as I am tall. Can you imagine how big their big brothers must be? I sketched as fast as I could while Captain Walsh answered questions. Miss Essie Mae Pitts asked, "Are they always this still?" Captain Walsh said, "When they're sunning themselves, they remain perfectly still. But don't let that fool you. Alligators can run faster than a full-grown man. In short bursts, they can run as fast as a horse." Immediately, everyone backed up. We snickered, embarrassed. Florida swamps are interesting, to be sure, but danger is always lurking. Look there in the fork of this tree. He pointed nearby. Once again, I had to search for what he wanted us to see. Then I saw it. A snake was coiled, right where several branches joined the trunk of the tree. I shivered. I hadn't seen it because the snake's skin was the exact same color as the tree bark. Captain Walsh pointed to a high tree across the water. "See that big bird over yonder?" Minnie Good asked, "Is that an eagle?" Captain Walsh said, "Looks like it, but it's an osprey. Ospreys always make their nest near water because they're fish eaters. Many's the time I've seen an osprey swoop down from high above, dip deep into the water with his talons, and come up with a fish. Florida's amazing. There's nature everywhere. But there is danger too. Love, Teddy."